Welcome back to the attic, part 2. Teddy is down in the dungeon, trying to solve his first mystery. So, let's find out what happens. Welcome back to part 2 of the attic. Thanks for listening. The top papers contained a transcript from an emergency meeting led by Mayor Jeffrey Smitherman. Many councilmen spoke about their sorrow, praising Blaine Smitherman as a pillar of community and a beacon of truth through his newspaper. And they unanimously agreed on a day of mourning and proposed naming the square in front of a newspaper after him. These pages were dedicated to discussing the creation of a statue in his honor. The motion passed without opposition. Teddy stopped reading. There was no square or park named after Blaine Smitherman, and as far as he knew, no statue had ever been built. He picked up the papers again. The discussion then moved to funeral arrangements, which were finalized and approved. Finally, Mayor Smitherman addressed the matter of Blaine Smitherman's estate. Blaine's older brother, Robert Smitherman, the CEO of the foundry, had passed away a few years earlier from an illness, leaving Blaine as the estate's sole holder. The city lawyer informed the council that Blaine's will stated the estate would pass to the next direct heir of the Smitherman family, by blood only. At this point, Jeffrey interjected, clarifying that while he carried the Smitherman name, he was not a blood relative of Blaine Smitherman. According to the transcript, the city lawyer reiterated that until a blood relative was found, the estate and all of its holdings would remain under the city's control. In all of Teddy's research on the Smitherman family, not once had it been mentioned that Jeffrey wasn't a blood relative. Teddy carefully lifted the next sheet, and his hands trembled slightly as he read the bold heading, Incident Report, Smitherman Fire, July 9th, 1943. His eyes darted across the faded type, absorbing the grim details. Fire originated at the Smitherman's estate, resulting in complete loss of the residence. Robert Smitherman, presumed dead asleep at the time of the blaze, was unable to escape, declared deceased at the scene. Teddy swallowed hard and continued reading. His breath caught when he reached the next section. Regarding Agatha Smitherman, daughter of Robert Smitherman, unregistered birth, age unknown. He frowned. Unregistered birth? That meant there was no official records of her existence. He skimmed further. This case is to remain sealed by the order of Mayor Jeffrey Smitherman. Teddy's grip on the paper tightened. His mind swirled with questions. Agatha? Why had no one ever mentioned her? And why would the city go to such length to erase her existence? His attention shifted. This case is to remain sealed by the order of Mayor Jeffrey Smitherman. Teddy's grip on the papers tightened. His mind swirled with questions. His attention shifted to the next stack of papers. Thick envelope stamped with the state seal. The bold heading at the topmost envelope sent a chill through him. State Coroner's Report. The first envelope held documents. The second, photographs. Teddy recalled the newspaper article he had seen earlier, the one that stated that Blaine Smitherman had died in the fire. He opened the first report, noting how meticulously it had been prepared. Unlike the printed reports he was used to, this one had been typed on an old typewriter. The letters were pressed into the page. The ink filled the grooves where the keys had stuck. The first page listed only the basics: name, date, age, and a clinical description of the body's condition. Severe trauma from the fire. It was the second page that made Teddy's heart stop. Cause of death. His breath quickened. He needed to be sure. With trembling hands, he tore open the second envelope and spread out the photographs. They were gruesome, more than any 13-year-old should ever have to see. He had never seen a dead body before, let alone one ravaged by fire, but he only needed to see one picture. The third one told the whole story. Teddy stood at the edge of the Smitherman house. his backpack slung over one shoulder. It was early afternoon, but the house still felt like it belonged to another time, like it had been plucked from history and left to rot. The sun cast long shadows through the broken windows. The air around it was eerily still, as if the world refused to acknowledge the house's presence. He hesitated before stepping inside. The box at City Hall had given him answers, but not enough. Agatha Smitherman? A girl no one talked about? A name that had been hidden, buried with the town's secrets. And now she was the reason he was back. The moment he crossed the threshold, the air inside shifted. Dust swirled in the light streaming through the cracked windows, and the wooden floors creaked beneath his weight. He made his way towards the staircase, his pulse quickening with each step. Then he heard it, a whisper, faint, fragile. His name. Teddy. His breath caught in his throat. The sound hadn't come from outside. It hadn't come from the wind. It came from upstairs. Teddy stared at the statue. It hadn't moved since his last visit, and yet, for some reason, he had expected its expression to change. Maybe soften, maybe offer some silent approval. But no, the same chiseled, stern, and disapproving gaze remained, silently telling him what he already knew. He was not welcome here. Teddy? The voice was faint, almost wispy, but unmistakable. Someone was calling his name. His rational mind immediately protested. How could anyone in this house possibly know his name? He wasn't wearing a name tag. He hadn't shouted it when he first came in. He imagined himself in the hallway the first time, dramatically announcing, "Hey, house, it's me, Teddy. I don't mean any harm. I'm just breaking down your door to figure out why you're so creepy." But his emotions drowned it out with cold, gripping fear. Whoever or whatever was up there knew his name. And if they knew his name, they might know where he lived, might be planning to hurt him, or worse, tell his mother. His gaze drifted upward, past the statue, to the second floor. That's where the voice came from. He should leave. He was alone, 13 years old. No one knew where he was. Running was the smart choice, but he wouldn't. Because if he ran, he'd come back. He knew himself too well. The mystery would eat at him. To his right, the room where Lady Smitherman had died, where they had found her body, lying motionless on the couch. A true investigator would start there. It was logical. That room, more than any other, probably held answers. Papers, clues about the house and the family. The study was darker than the other room, colder. There was something about it, something unspoken, something that whispered, "Stay away." Logic told him to go inside, and yet he couldn't. Instinct told him not to. This time, instinct won. He took a deep breath, squared his shoulders, and stepped towards the stairs. Whatever was waiting for him was up there, and he was going to find out why. The first steps were cautious, slow, hesitant. He tested each one before committing, letting his toes barely brush the worn carpet before shifting his full weight forward. He had seen this kind of movement in every mystery movie he had ever watched. The protagonist creeping forward, hyper-aware, bracing for the unknown. It always looked a little silly on screen, but now he was the one moving like that, and there was nothing funny about it. "Daddy, I'm up here." He froze. His breath caught. His heart stopped. The voice was clear, a girl's voice. His head tilted forward, his neck strained as if it would help him understand what he had heard. Someone was upstairs, and they knew his name. "Where?" he called out, his voice barely above a whisper. Silence. Who are you?" His rational mind finally took over. Who was a much better question than where. "I'm upstairs." His instincts were screaming two things at once: run upstairs and run home. He couldn't decide which one was stronger. His mind scrambled for explanations, or something that made sense. "Who are you?" he asked again, his voice more demanding this time. The voice responded, "A name. A name that no one should know." "It's me, Peggy. Come play. Aunt Elda said it was fine." A chill crawled up Teddy's spine. He knew that name. He knew he shouldn't be hearing it. Teddy continued up the stairs, each step deliberate. The thick layer of dust on the banister and carpeted steps clung to his fingers and shoes. At the landing, he paused and looked back. His footprints trailed behind him, the only disturbance in the dust. That detail itched at his mind. He scanned the floor around him, then the opposite stairway, the one that met him at this platform. No footprints. None. The voice had come from up here. Someone had spoken his name. But if there was no sign of anyone else moving through the dust, the logical explanation was that another staircase led to the second floor, a hidden passage, a servant's stairwell. Something. The alternative? Ghosts. He knew what he saw the first time he was here in the house. He saw an old lady, and she had every appearance of a ghost. Not that he had experience in what a ghost should look like, but since that time he struggled with the idea. There must be another solution. Someone is toying with him, someone trying to scare him off. They are trying to get him to leave the home and abandon his investigation. But what if there were ghosts? What if what he saw was... Teddy had always entertained the idea of ghosts. But because he loved a good mystery, many of his books he read, the movies he watched, hinted at ghosts, only to unravel a logical explanation by the end. There was always an answer. There had to be an answer. Still, some stories left a question mark, a lingering suggestion that not everything could be explained. He stood there on the landing, dust swirling in the dim light, his mind shifting in direction he wasn't sure he wanted to go. Maybe ghosts weren't real. But now, standing here, hearing that voice, seeing the untouched dust, he wasn't so sure. He didn't know if he wanted to be right or wrong. "Daddy, are you coming up to play with me?" "I'm here. Where are you?" "You need to come up here. I'm not allowed down there. Come up here, we can play. We can play cherries in a basket. I'll let you go first." Teddy hesitated. Cherries in the basket? He had never heard of that game. He had a Nintendo, and he was pretty sure no game by that name existed. Maybe it was an Xbox game. That thought made no sense. There was no electricity in this house. How was he supposed to play Xbox with no power? "Agatha, where is here? I'm at the top of the stairs, but I don't know where to go."
"Go through the door on the left next to the pallet room, dearie."
A new voice. An older voice. Strong. Commanding. Teddy's breath caught in his throat. His feet felt rooted to the floor. "Who was that?" His voice came out small, uncertain. "That was Auntie, Teddy. She said it's okay for you to come up. I have the jacks ready. Hurry." "Auntie?" His mind raced. "Auntie Adele? You mean Lady Adele Smitherman?" "Nobody calls her Lady Adele, silly. Auntie Adele said it's okay. Now come on." Teddy's pulse pounded in his ears. This has to be a joke. Yesterday, he had been at the old courthouse reading about Lady Adele and Agatha Smitherman in the archives. And now these voices were calling their names. This couldn't be real. But this was a joke. Who was playing it? Teddy swallowed hard and glanced to the left. Powder rooms were small bathrooms. He knew that much. And there it was, just as the voice had said. Beside it stood a narrow door. The door itself was small, but its ornate golden knob and oversized plate made it seem important. Slowly, cautiously, Teddy reached for the knob. It was cold against his palm. He twisted, pulled. Nothing. It's locked, he called out, tilting his head towards the ceiling. Empty. The girl's voice echoed through the hallway. Teddy flinched. A small table nearby caught his eye. On it, a tiny, mirrored tray held delicate glass figurines of ice skaters. As the echo faded, he saw them tremble. The tiny glass skaters vibrated on the mirrored surface as if someone had stirred the very air around them. A soft click echoed through the hallway. Teddy jerked his hand back as the doorknob turned on its own. The narrow door creaked open just an inch, revealing only darkness beyond. A cool draft slipped through the gap, carrying the scent of old wood and something faintly sweet, like lavender. Faded but still lingering after all these years. His heart pounded. He could leave. He should leave. But Teddy knew himself well enough to know that if he ran now, he had to see this through. Swallowing hard, he pushed the door open wider. A set of wooden stairs stretched upward, the space beyond shrouded in heavy shadows. The steps looked older than the grand staircase he just climbed, worn and narrow, like something servants might have used long ago. Teddy. The voice was softer now, almost coaxing. It drifted down from above, curling around him like a whisper of wind. His fingers grazed the rough wooden railing as he took the first step. The stairs groaned beneath his weight. He climbed slowly, each footfall stirring the dust that had settled for decades. Air felt heavier the higher he went, thick with the weight of something unseen. At the top of the stairs, a dim glow seeped from beneath a half-open door. It flickered like a candle, though Teddy knew there were no candles burning in this abandoned house. He hesitated. Then, before he could second-guess himself, he reached open and pushed the door open. Inside, the room was bathed in a soft, golden glow. The walls were lined with tall wooden bookshelves, their surfaces coated in dust. A large rug covered the wooden floor, its once vibrant pattern faded with age. Against the far wall sat a small four-poster bed, the canopy sagging slightly, draped in sheer white fabric. And in the center of the room stood a girl. She looked no older than Teddy, maybe 12 or 13, with long dark hair that fell in soft waves over her shoulders. She wore an old-fashioned white dress, its lace trimmed delicate and yellowed with time. Her bare feet barely seemed to press into the rug beneath her. "Teddy," she said again, her voice light, almost musical. Her pale blue eyes locked onto his, filled with something unreadable. Oh, you can't leave a story hanging like that, but I am. You've just finished part 3 of The Attic, created by EC Creative Sound and Story. Make sure you come back to hear the final episode. Is Teddy finally going to meet Agatha, or is he way over his sneakers? Find out in the final episode of The Attic. And thanks for listening. Stay creative.